Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Scheidley. I'm the AVP of DI Sales here at Illinois Mutual, and I'm so excited to bring to our May Best Practices Forum Rodney Mogan today. He has been someone that we've met with, worked with in the industry for a number of years now, more so the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years. Rodney, you and I have connected, but I know you obviously have a lot more experience in the industry than that. And today we're very excited to have you join us to tell us a little bit about yourself, your DI, story, and your why for joining the industry, and then just how you are successful, especially with selling disability income and business expense to small business owners. So at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rodney to give us a little bit of background and maybe tell us a little bit about your why for DI. And then we'll go from there. A few housekeeping things. Hopefully everyone will be on mute today. There is a questions feature through GoToWebinar. If you have questions while Rodney's speaking, feel free to type those into the questions tool. We'll have one of our regional managers will be kind of monitoring that, and they can respond at the time. But at the end of the discussion today, we'll open it up for some Q&A and be able to ask more of those questions, either of your Illinois Mutual team or of Rodney, and hopefully it'll be worthwhile for everyone. So Rodney, if you want to tell us a little bit about you and your business and why you love DI so much.
Yeah. Andrea, thank you very much. And thank you for having me. And I love working with Illinois Mutual and the team here. So my why starts really at 2 different points. Number 1, when I was born, and I'll explain that in a second. And then number 2, my last game in college. And the reason why I say when I was born is I am autistic. I'm on the spectrum. And so I really was really kind of put into a pigeonhole in a situation, and so mental health means a lot to me. And as we know, that is one of the number 1 reasons for disability claims. And so I want to make sure I'm educating people ahead of time, all those different things about mental health, and that's one of the drivers of why I think disability insurance, or what I call income protection, is extremely important. But really probably more of a physical story that really occurred, and I say physical meaning you can see it, and you've met me in person, and I am 7'2", but I have had multiple injuries, culminating with a pretty big one my last game in college, and it has forever altered my life and changed my feet and my ankles. I have had over 500 surgeries on my feet and ankles, both legs, and I just had a last one back in September of last year. And I'm in and out of boots, in and out of casts, and now basically the doctor is basically saying I'm gonna have to start using a wheelchair at least half the time, if not full time, just because being 7'2" and with the issues I have with my legs, it's just not working. And the reason why I bring that up is I was gonna play professional basketball. That completely, not NBA, but going to Europe. That injury and some of the other injuries completely ruined that opportunity, and I lost a lot of money because of that. And I fell into this career literally because I fell getting hurt, and then 4 weeks later ended up at a career fair, and it ended up working in this career. But the whole point of it is disability insurance was the one thing that I always talked about. I started with a company called IDS Financial Advisors, now Ameriprise Financial, and I always did planning. I felt planning was extremely important, but the first thing that I did after cash reserves was tell my story and actually put in income protection into place. And that was what I did with every client that qualified for it. And I have become an expert because of that, because I think that it is so important to anyone that is earning an income. I'm one of the rare people that I do not just go after doctors or dentists or lawyers or attorneys. I work with everyone. Which is why I also work with Illinois Mutual, because Illinois Mutual works with pretty much everybody as well. And I work with a lot of different, industries. And I have really become an expert on the DI product, what it offers. And my overall view of disability has probably changed since when I got in the business in 1999 to now, for the better. I'm probably more adamant about everyone needs a disability policy, and more importantly, needs an individual disability policy, and then we can kind of go from there. So that's kind of about me. And then I My practice, I've been on my own since really 2010 when I left sales management. And I work with advisors all across the country to bring disability insurance to their clients. Because I am that expert, I have my own clients that I work with, but then I also work through other advisors, and they have me run their disability income protection needs. Because in my opinion, it really is a niche place. I know we want to get more people doing disability, so I really help them, teach them how to do it, and then help them through all the different pitfalls and twists and turns of disability.
That's great. Thank you so much, Rodney. And that there's so many things about what you just said that I could go on so many rabbit holes, but we truly do appreciate just your passion for the industry. And obviously, I think one of the biggest things here for everyone to take away is, and when you're talking with clients, simply asking them, do you know someone that became disabled, or do you have a personal experience or personal story or some connection? Because once we ask that, I feel like, when you're young, you feel like you're invincible, nothing's going to happen to you. There's no personal connection. But the more people in this industry that I meet and I hear about their experience, whether it's with their parents or them personally or a close friend or family member, that's their why, right? And if we can help clients connect to that, or we can connect with clients for that, I think that's, could just help everyone be more successful in spreading the awareness and need and letting people know that there's a product out there to help protect you for that huge loss of income, that you've experienced. So that was the first thing that I took away from that already today. So you've done your job. Way to go.
Yep.
So you mentioned in your practice that you do personal production, but then also work with other advisors to help them and their clients sell disability income, whether it's working directly with their clients or working with the advisor themselves. What's one thing that you think that you do as far as kind of starting with the end in mind when you're bringing up the DI conversation? How do you guide your clients to realize the need for disability income without saying, hey, you need, or income protection, you need income protection? How do you help them kind of come to that conclusion themselves in your discussion?
I tell them my story. So I really do tell them just that, basically how I always introduce it is just say, thank you so much for sharing your information with me. One of the things, I am seeing something that I want to just kind of tell you a personal story first. And that personal story is, as you can tell, I'm 7'2". So probably the question you're asking is, did I play college basketball? Yes, I did. As you can tell, I have leg braces on, or I'm in casts or crutches. So you're probably wondering, do those injuries come from college? And yes, they did. But what you don't know is that I had the opportunity to go play professional basketball. Now, not everyone has that opportunity, but I lost out on a lot of opportunities for income and travel and things like that. And also has affected a lot of my work since then due to surgeries, things like that, because of my injury. If you were in a situation where maybe it wasn't an injury, maybe it was cancer or a long-term sickness, or maybe it was stress, because that is one of our top situations, how would you be able to pay the bills? And then is that something that you are concerned about? I'm a big believer that we have to first identify the problem. Number two, we have to get them to agree that it is a problem. But where I think a lot of advisors, a lot of agents, a lot of people, especially when they're selling disability or income protection, they go from agreeing there's a problem and buying that there's a problem to immediately putting a solution down the table. I think that step that you're missing, or that most people jump over, it's something that I really, over the last 10, 15 years have really honed in on, is getting their commitment that this is a problem they want to solve. And I think that's probably the most important thing. Most people, when they're seeing an advisor, they want to solve retirement, they want to solve education. Last thing they're thinking about is their income protection. And to them, it's just an added cost. It's not necessarily something they really see. So if you can get them to buy in that there is a problem, that there is a concern, and then get them to buy in that there actually is, that this is a problem that they want to solve because it could affect everything else that they want to do, then you can move to that next step of putting in solutions. And part of those solutions aren't necessarily always a Cadillac plan. Sometimes they are a small plan. What I do is I call it the Pinto, because more than likely it's going to blow up. No offense to people that have a Pinto, but I call it the Pinto. I call it the Jeep Cherokee, and then I call it the Tesla. And so you have your luxury, you have your mid-market, and then you have your Pinto. I sell a lot of Pintos. I sell a lot of Jeep Cherokee products. I don't always sell a whole lot of Teslas because it really comes down to what problem they really want to solve. And that, like I said, that's that key thing, is buying that they want to solve that. And so once you understand what problem they want to solve, then you can craft the solution around that.
I love that. And when you mentioned how you sell disability, and with your intro, you talked about how you sell disability income now versus when you maybe first started. First starting, I feel like, we're trained that we have to have the Cadillac plan or the Tesla plan, right? Over time, we realize we want to get our clients something rather than nothing. And that's the key. You want to make sure they have something in force on an individual plan, preferably, like you said, versus nothing because it was too expensive, they couldn't afford it, gave them sticker shock, or they weren't 100% sold on the need for this coverage. So that approach, I think, is fantastic. And that's one of the things on our internal team. We get so many requests for quotes, and it's always, show me the Cadillac plan. I have to have the 90-day, have to have the age 67, max out my benefit, and load up the riders. A lot of times I want to ask, how many times does that come back in as a sale? Did your client purchase that coverage? No, most of the time, probably not. But what I like how you presented in the different options, and that's the great thing, not just with Illinois Mutual, but all carriers. Our illustrations have so much information there that you can have one conversation with one illustration to show them all the options to make sure that you're protecting them, and let them decide to do that solution, come up with a solution there. So that's a great approach. And I do think it's the biggest thing is getting them to see the need and then them to buy into it. When you were talking about the other areas of insurance or financial planning that you talk about first, maybe throughout the years in your discussions with your clients, a lot of times we hear that I don't have time to bring up the DI conversation, or, my client, it was already an hour and a half planning. There's, we couldn't get to the DI or something like that. Do you have any tips on that, or different things that you do that help get that DI conversation added in, before the next meeting or before the next year, review comes up? Yep.
So remember I mentioned at the beginning I'm autistic. So I'm very, very structured. And like I said, you've met me, so I'm a pretty structured kind of guy. Anyone that knows me on this call knows that I follow a calendar, I follow different things. The first thing that I do is, I do a fact finder. And I know that's another question. We can talk about that in a little bit. Yes. But I set the expectation that we're not going to get everything done in one meeting, and we're not probably going to get everything done in 3 or 4 meetings. I am also ADD, not HD, even though I do move around a lot. I am ADD. My brain starts to wander after about 30 minutes. And that's not fair to the client. That's not fair to anybody else. So all my meetings are 30 minutes because that is about as long as I can mentally focus. And then so with my autism and ADD, I'm very structured and I do that. So each meeting has maybe 1 to 2 topics. There is an agenda item ahead of time. But when I actually am talking with the client and we're talking about planning, we're talking about their overall situation, I do give them a checklist. And in that checklist, it's got everything that's in there. And those are going to be things we're going to talk about. It's just not necessarily going to be done in a specific order, or it's not going to be done all in one meeting. For me, cash reserves and income protection are the first 2 items that we will always talk about. Life insurance is going to be the next one. And then everything else goes beyond there. So that's my priority. I know a lot of agents, a lot of insurance advisors, financial advisors, they want to get the assets. They want to get those moving. They want to do that because that's the sexy piece. That's why people probably hired them. I've got no problem having the non-sexy piece up front, simply because the fact, to me, that's the most important. And then we can start moving everything else and doing everything else down the road.
That's a great point, because without your income, the rest of that pretty much falls apart, right? So yep. I love that. Well, our topic today was to talk a little bit about individuals and business overhead expense, the small business owners that you're working with, selling not only individual DI, but also business overhead expense. And I think that's one space for Illinois Mutual. You mentioned we've always been known kind of as a blue collar or middle market carrier. We work with so many small business owners in that middle market space, but such a small portion of our business is actually business overhead expense coverage. It's usually individual DI, and then we got them that, and yay, we did our job, right? And then we just kind of stop the conversation there. So could you tell us a little bit more about how you either bring up both product, conversations, or how you help them see the need for that, or transition into the BE conversation to make sure that not only the individual is protected, but also the business is going to be protected too?
Yeah. So first, let me just say that I'm not perfect at the BE conversation. It has been something I have focused on for the last 4 years. And, last year I ended up doing 330 policies, which I know kind of makes me one of the top people in the country among the industry, because it's, like you said, it's not a well implemented product. And if you look at individual disability as a whole, it's not a well implemented product, period. When we know through LIMRA, only 1% of working age adults have individual disability coverage, and less than 0.5% of all working individuals are considered adequately covered. So we know there's a huge opportunity, and with business owners, it's actually even, and that's actually, in my private practice, that's all I work with is small business owners. So it is a regular conversation that I have, and it goes back to what I was talking about, a few minutes ago. I need to get them to understand that there's a problem, and then I need to get them to buy into it, and then more importantly, want to solve that problem. And so when it's a business owner, you're talking about your income, but then what I will add in there is, let me ask you a question, Andrea. You're running your business. You unfortunately go to the doctor one day and you get some bad news. Doctor says, hey, you know what, you're going to be fine. We're going to get you through this. However, you're probably not going to be able to work as much. You're not going to be able to be at your company. You're not going to be able to do all those different things, probably for a year or 2 years. All right. As a business owner, what are the thoughts going through your head? And they're going to have a lot of different things. If their spouse is there, as a spouse, you get most of your income from the business. What are the things going through your head? Great. Here's something you probably haven't thought about. What are the thoughts going through your employee's head when you tell them that you're not going to be there and be present all the time? And that's usually where I stump them. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, how much you want to bet? I'll give you 10 to 1. I'll give you 20 to 1 odds. Sometimes I put a dollar bill down. I am conservative, so I don't give a whole lot of money, but I'm willing to bet this dollar that within 10 minutes of you telling your employees this, they've got their resumes out on Indeed or on Kayak or Monster or whatever, that they're out looking. Well, why would they do that? Because they know you're the business. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to be there, they're worried about their job. No, they're going to stay because I need them to keep the business going. Yeah, but they know you're not going to be there, so they're worried about their job. Oh my God, I didn't think about it that way. And then you start, you've identified the problem, and then you just say, is that a problem? Is that a concern to you? Well, yeah, it is definitely a concern to me. Okay, is this a problem you would like to have a solution to? Yes, great. Here's how we do it. And that's how you bring up the business expense. And a lot of times what I will do is, before I even talk about business expense, I will actually talk about something that is not a product I sell. It's not a product that any of the advisors I work with sell. It is a P&C product, and it is called business interruption insurance. And I always ask them, do you have business interruption insurance? And if you're working in the Midwest, if you're working in the South, if you're working in generally West or the East, almost every business owner has business interruption insurance. Now, what is that? That is a P&C product, property and casualty product, that basically, if due to weather or due to something like that, a tornado or whatever, you can't open up your business, or flooding, that it will actually cover the losses while your business is shut down. So I bring that up, and they almost always have it, because a good P&C agent is going to have that as part of the package. So then I ask them, well, do you have business interruption insurance if you are sick or hurt?
Okay.
And so now remember, I've just tied in that it's a problem they want to solve, that they don't want their employees to put their resume up there if they get sick or hurt. They want their business to continue to run because they need those employees to do that. I've now tied it in that this, and then I can talk about the business expense. What I have found when I do business expense, I always try to get the maximum. You're looking at their overhead. I always try to get 20, 25,000, 15,000, whatever they would qualify for. I usually find that that's where they start to whittle it down a little bit. They're more worried about their own income, which is understandable. So there'll be a little bit more on that income side. But when it comes to the business overhead expense piece or the business expense piece, they really start whittling down that what that overhead really is or what they really need that overhead for. And where we're getting into, I think, a major issue since COVID is it's actually, believe it or not, it's easier to talk to that business owner about that business expense piece now because they've seen it. They've seen not being at work. The problem that we're running into is an underwriting problem, and that is a lot of these companies have moved to all virtual instead of having brick and mortar. And so a lot of the overhead is gone except for salary. And so it's convincing underwriters that that's still going to happen. They're still going to need those people, things like that, because they don't have that brick and mortar spot anymore. So there's always challenges, always always conversations with underwriting, but the more you can present it, the more you can help. And I know we'll talk about underwriting in a second, but those are all different things. But that's how I present the business expense piece.
I love that. That was like the first or the second eye-opening thing for me today was the business interruption insurance. So making the connection, because every business owner works with the commercial agent, right? Or everyone has home, auto, life. So making that connection there and tying in the either income protection piece or the business expense protection piece, I think that's huge. And we work with so many P&C agents that they have the perfect clientele, right? Just in their back pocket. But a lot of times it's just having that fear or not taking the time to be more proactive and asking about income protection. So for any of you that are P&C agents on the call today, I think that could be right there. Something that you start doing today is when you talk about business interruption insurance, roll right into the business expense and then individual DI conversations. Since you just mentioned underwriting, that's the next thing, we can segue into that. But you do such a fantastic job of field underwriting. Obviously, over the years that the more field underwriting you do, the more questions you ask up front, the better the experience is going to be. And like you just said, as far as from a business perspective, how you package that and present it to the underwriter will help you get the best offer for your clients. So can you talk a little bit more about your process with field underwriting or anything that you found to be super helpful or tips for other agents to improve? Because that's one thing we've honestly been struggling with a little bit this year is just the overall field underwriting experience. So I think this is very important information for you to share.
Field underwriting is not 100%, not 300%, but it's 1,000% your responsibility. And if you want to actually place these cases, it is a must. I'm going to put it out like that. I have a 99.3% placement ratio. And that's based on issued and approved to paid. I've got a 92% from submitted to issue or submitted to paid. And so, because there's always going to be some declines, and then sometimes there's going to be some different things. This is what I said at the beginning, where the disability world is a niche area. Not saying that we want more agents, more advisors to sell more disability, because that's actually how we protect our clients. But there are so many nuances when it comes to disability insurance, especially on the underwriting piece. It's similar, but it's not exactly like life insurance. You can have someone with a heart attack or different things like that. Okay, yeah, I know this is going to be this on life insurance, but it can actually be a lot more detailed, a lot more. Oh, well, it wasn't even a bypass, or it was a 4 quadruple bypass, and it was 3 years ago, and they've got 4 stents, and the failure rates on stents are this and this, so there's going to be an exclusion on the heart. All these different types of things. Or, the most common, obviously, is the chiropractor. Well, I sit all day, so I get my back adjusted once a month. Well, that generally ends up with a back exclusion. Now, sometimes you can avoid the back exclusion if you know up front and you prepare the underwriter for it. So that's why I'm a really big fan of field underwriting. And you're younger than I am, so I don't know exactly what it was like when you came in the business. But when I came in the business in '99, You actually had to do the part 2. It was actually part of the part 1. It was not a part 2. It was a part 1. In fact, I'm still stubborn. I'm like, well, what's this part 2? Because to me, it's always been the same way. But the medical questions used to be part of the app. And as an industry, and I'm going to say it right now, we got lazy. We didn't want to ask those questions. We didn't want to be uncomfortable with the client. I'm okay with being uncomfortable. I'm telling them I'm trying to get them through underwriting as best I can with as least as many surprises and get you the best rating. And I need to know that information up front. Now, how I ask the questions are different than how I did in 1999. 1999, I literally read the questions. Remember, rule follower, autistic. I didn't want to break any rules. Now what I'll do is I actually ask 3 to 4 questions to start with. First is, have you been to the hospital or doctor for any medical treatment in the last 10 years? Okay, that gives me a starting point. Okay. Next is, what current medications are you on? And then what medications have you been prescribed over the last 5 years or 6 years? There's a reason why I say 5 and 10, because those are on the part 2 questions. So I want to know that information ahead of time. So know your part 2s, know what's going to be asked. I also obviously ask height, weight, health. Have you lost any any weight or gained any weight in the last year and a half? Those are standard questions. Then another question that I do ask is, and this, if you notice, I was just very, very energetic and positive about it, so it was no big deal. When I asked this question, I don't know if you caught it, but I actually switched my voice to be a little softer and was just, I slowed it down a little bit. And when I just says, when we're talking about disability insurance, disability underwriters can be intrusive. I understand that. Just underwriting in general can be intrusive, but they only have one window to look at this, and they have to get it as right as they possibly can so that the company will always be there to pay your claim. That's an important part, right? Yes. So one of the biggest claim issues is mental health. So has there been anything since you turned 18 or even before that where you've been hospitalized for mental health or are on drugs or treatment or different things like that? Because I want to get to know, do they have or have they had suicidal ideations? Have they been treated for it? Those different things. I'm working with a client right now that actually is a psychiatrist, and she was surprised that she was declined because of about 4 different factors. She's like, of all the things in the diagnostic manual, those are minor, no big deal, da 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 da. And I'm like, well, maybe no big deal for you, but it's a big deal for the underwriters, and it kind of explained it to her. But when I had asked her that same question, she's like, no, I don't have any mental health issues. So in her mind, those weren't. So you're not always. I use that example because you're not always going to get the answers that you want. And she wasn't on any medication for anything. So, but if you ask those questions with medication, hospital treatments, and then you have that softer tone with the mental health, more than likely you're going to pick up, I'd say 85, 90% of what you need to know. I do add in, I do this more specifically for certain jobs than I do for everybody else, but I will talk about, do you go get massages or do you go get chiropractic treatment at all or whatever, just because I do want to know and prep that ahead of time. Because like I said, there are ways where you can talk to the underwriter ahead of time through a cover letter. And I would say about 85% of all my policies that go in, applications that go in, have a cover letter.
That's nice.
Really detailing everything, every single step. And so that, I hope I don't offend any underwriters on the call if there are any, but basically I don't want an underwriter guessing at the motives. I want an underwriter knowing what the motives or what the history is. And the reason for that is if they know exactly what you're talking about and how you're doing things and moving forward, usually, they got to follow their guidelines, but usually they'll actually minimize a lot of different things. So the more you field underwrite, the more you prep the underwriter, the better it's going to be.
That's so true. And I'm so glad we had this conversation because, learning your placement ratios and just kind of success there is huge. I feel like just in the industry overall, but especially from Illinois Mutual experience right now. Because a lot of agents we work with, they're not DI experts, right? They don't have, um, is not part of their everyday conversation. So these are things that we're trying to help educate agents on more to how we can improve the overall experience from an agent perspective and from your client perspective. Because a lot of times, we know this, you submit that first case, didn't ask medical questions up front or didn't do the field underwriting. So it feels like it's just nonstop of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth throughout the underwriting process. The agent gets frustrated, the client gets frustrated, and then no one wants to talk about disability income after that. That's not a win for anyone, right? Like you said, we need more advisors talking about income protection to make sure that our clients are protected, because there's such a huge need out there. So these tips are so helpful. And I think the biggest thing is, like you said, being uncomfortable, to ask some of those questions, but it's all in how you deliver it. And I think what I loved about what you said is explaining why you're asking these questions and why an underwriter is needing this information for how it's going to, help them get the coverage that they want, but also protect the company to make sure it's still there to pay their claims. That brings it all full circle for them. So that was, I thought, just a very good tip.
Yeah, and the one thing I would add, and I forgot to mention this, is I'm sure you hear this all the time. I know your underwriters do. Well, they got ultra preferred on life insurance, or select preferred or whatever. Why are you declining them on DI? Again, it's understanding mortality versus morbidity. I've had a situation where the client was in a car wreck, had back issues, had a wrenched knee, suffered basically a TBI, creating a migraine, chronic migraines, things like that. On life insurance, she got select preferred, healthy, no big deal. On the DI piece, the agent that brought the opportunity to me had already gotten in decline with 3 companies. Now, that's the other thing. Don't just submit apps in either. I would, you really want to pre-screen, and then you want to talk to the carriers ahead of time and really figure it out. Now, we were able to get her coverage. I was able to talk with the underwriter, explain things like that, but those are the things that you do have to but there are exclusions. There are some ratings on it. You have to know exactly, how to have that conversation. And if you don't have those questions ahead of time, you don't have that information ahead of time, then you're hamstrung. You can't really talk to the underwriter, because now with HIPAA and all that, they don't know this stuff, and so they can't really have that conversation. But if you explain it up front and you go through everything, it's a much easier conversation.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing too, is no matter what carrier you work with, but especially Illinois Mutual, you have direct access to your underwriters. You have direct access to your sales team. Use them. That's what we're here for. We want to make sure that, like you said, this information up front. You can have that conversation. Then you can put that information into a cover letter. So it's all packaged up on the front side. And if going into it that there's going to be an exclusion or a rating, you can prepare your client for that today before you even take the application.
Yes.
So again, that helps improve your placement ratio. So you don't get all the way through underwriting and it's a surprise, oh, this isn't going to be covered, this is excluded, or a little bit higher premium than we, originally thought. That doesn't go over as well most of the time, where if we're prepared up front, it definitely helps, overall experience there. So.
Yeah, and like I said, if you know the disability market and you know everything, and you know that, hey, they go to a chiropractor, and it's, maybe you talk to the underwriter ahead of time. Okay, yeah, well, that might be an exclusion. So you tell them that might be an exclusion. I can tell you, getting a surprise exclusion is going to kill the policy, because, and this is no offense to any insurance company, I don't care who the carrier is, the way they write those exclusions, they're as clear as mud, and it freaks out the best of people. Even though from being in the business for 30 years or 24 years, I think for me, but you know that it's not going to be worst case scenario, but now they're looking at it certain ways. And so it just completely reframes the opportunity and the presentation. So the more you can prep them ahead of time, walk them through different things, I think the new thing that I'm seeing a lot right now, that I now have to ask an additional question, is do you partake in any activities like rock climbing and scuba diving? Even though that's always been a question, very few people were doing it. Now, since COVID, I found that a lot of people, that's how they're reducing stress. So
it might be helping, on the mental nervous side of things, less medications or treatment, but now we have the
correct.
hazardous activities. So yeah, but one way or another, but those are all good things to ask and just good things to be aware of. Transitioning a little bit, and I think again, it's just you do such a good job of making your clients feel comfortable and understanding, and you work with so many different advisors. Illinois Mutual, we've been talking a lot about working with centers of influence like CPAs or real estate agents to get referrals for clients who would be a great fit for income protection, right? And understanding the need for that there. A big thing, I think, sometimes whether it's working with other advisors or working with those centers of influence is how do you get them to trust you that you are going to take care of their clients, you're not going to ruin the primary sale for them or jeopardize their relationship at all. I know there's sometimes concern or feedback we hear about that. So do you have any tips or thoughts on that situation?
Yes. So go with the acronym WIFT. What's in it for them? Not what's in it for me, not how I can help their clients. Honestly, most of them don't care. And they want to know what's in it for them. And that does not mean compensation. That can be a lot of different things of really understanding what's in it for them. So let's talk about, I get some of my best referrals from commercial agents who may even be life and health licensed, but they just don't know the products very well, so they don't want to talk about it, but we do joint work together, but they refer them to me that way. And real estate agents and CPAs. I'm going to talk about CPAs separately because they are a separate thing to kind of deal with. But real estate agents, PNC agents, they market just like we do. They're constantly out there networking, growing, advertising, all those different things. And so they don't want their reputation ruined. You don't want your reputation ruined. You want to treat it all together. So what's in it for them is extremely important. Of, hey, I can be your trusted source because you know that other people might actually try to take your business from you, or they might do this or do that. They might have other licenses. The other way that I think really, really helps is every referral partner that I have that I work with has a disability policy, has a life insurance policy through me. So they've actually seen the process. And now they actually believe in it because they see exactly what I've done. And now they know exactly what I'm going to do for their clients. So I think that's extremely important right there. CPAs are a different animal, okay? They're a different breed. Number one, and I know I'm being very stereotypical, but most CPAs cannot market their way out of a paperback. And I love them to death. They're just not really good at marketing. So when they get clients, they want to keep those clients. And they're really busy. Some of them are really only busy 4 or 5 months out of the year, and then they're not really active the rest of the year. So when it comes to a CPA or a PNC, commercial agent, or even a real estate agent, you got to be selective for yourself as well. And so one of the things that I do is I want people that are thinking similar to me, that it's more of a relationship, more of a planning. And you're probably thinking, how does planning work with a real estate agent? Well, I've got 15 real estate agents that the amount of time they put in with their clients to sell or buy a home, you're going, man, you're probably making $3 an hour once you finally sell it. But they constantly are getting referrals, and they have all this volume in there. It's not your other real estate agents where it's just buy or sell the home and then move on to the next one. They're constantly having these relationships. So you want people that are going to be like you, that you're maintaining a relationship with your client. So they're maintaining, so everyone has this kind of bought in equality, or bought in shared point. In fact, I have a realtor that just gave me three referrals this morning for disability and life insurance opportunities. And so those are the things that but I've heard him talk about these clients for 5 months. Is that now they're ready to move forward with the insurance piece, and they want to have that in place. They've talked to other advisors, they've talked to other agents. They didn't like how they talked, but because he referred them, they're all in, and we've already talked to them. We've got meetings. They're ready to go. So it's kind of having that relationship. But that CPA, because they are more afraid about their practice, you really have to follow WIFT. What's in it for them? How, you know, and especially like I said, I pretty much only work with business owners. So I only work with CPAs that only work with business owners. We share a common view of the world there. That is probably, you know, they interview you, I interview them, but it's probably a 6-month, 8-month relationship before I even ask for business. And you know, most CPAs will tell you, well, I can't really refer a whole lot of things because, you know, they may already have an advisor. I'm like, okay, no problem. And I just say, well, they probably already have an accountant because they want that referral, but they don't want to give out a referral to you because they don't want it to harm their practice. So once we understand that we're both being protective, then we can kind of say, you can start doing scenarios. Well, how would you do this or whatever? And what it really comes down to is, hey, I trust you. And that I can't tell you how many coffees I've had with CPAs. Still take the 15 I work with that give me referrals on a regular basis. I take them to coffee once a month. It's all about relationship. They want to make sure that you're going to be there. And I tell them about the products. I tell them about, I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people in this industry do is, you know, especially with other financial professionals, we don't share about what we do. We think it's some big secret. I actually walk them through, here are the products. Here, hey, Illinois Mutual can now actually cover, you know, as long as we apply through them, they can actually cover non-working spouses up to $1,000 a month. You know, these different types of things. Guess what that happens? Hey, they're having a conversation with a client. Well, you know, I'm really concerned if my wife gets injured or hurt or sick or whatever, who's going to pay for the childcare that we got to bring in? Or who's going to do this, do that? Hey, you know what? I have a guy that actually has a solution for that. Or, you know, I work with a lot of farmers and ranchers. Hey, you know, blah, 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 blah. So going through those scenarios puts things in their mind, not for that day, but down the road when they're talking to somebody.
That's a great point. And honestly, I do feel like sometimes in the insurance industry, especially just from a sales perspective, people will ask what I do. And I'm like, oh, I'm in, you know, you start to talk about disability income or income protection sales, and then they glaze over and you kind of lose them before you even got started. And so usually I just say, I'm in sales now, you know, but I need to do a better job of explaining, you know, income protection, make it sound sexy and help them understand, you know, what this actually protects. A lot of times in the past, I've talked about return of premium rider. That gets everyone interested because they're like, wait, what? I can get my money back if I never use my insurance policy. So, you know, different things like that I think makes the connection for the clients is a good point there. So we are about 10:45. I just want to be, you know, I want to go ahead and open it up for Q&A at this time. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Rodney, and have made a lot of notes myself for things to start following up after this. So I hope for those of you that are still on the call, you have, you know, gotten a lot of helpful information from Rodney also. We really do appreciate just your partnership and passion for the industry. And I forgot to mention at the beginning of the call that May is Disability Income Awareness Month. So I think to start our conversation today on May 3rd was the best time because there's, again, like you said, so much need, so many potential clients out there, and the importance of income protection is huge. So hopefully it's good timing for everyone. But at this point in time, I will go ahead and open it up for questions.
I do see a question from your, I call her your superstar or your secret weapon. So, yeah. and that's Erica Utley, and you know, she's asking how often do I run into blood issues, and not all that often, because again, I know the products, I know where the limits are, things like that, and so I'm prepping the client ahead of time about when they need to do labs and different things like that. So it's usually isn't an issue.
Perfect, that is helpful.
Had to give a shout out to her because
yes,
she is a superstar.
Thank you. And actually, before I open it up for questions, I should mention that on the call today, we do have our internal sales team and external sales team. So we have Dave Plum and Jeff Wilson, our regional managers out in the field, and then also have Erica Utley, or it's Erica Allen now, and Carrie Mercer, two of the internal sales reps as well. So did any of you have questions you wanted to ask for Rodney? We can open that up while I'm working on the additional questions from attendees.
Hey, Rodney, this is Jeff. Thank you so much. It's been fantastic. If we could bottle you and send you around, we would certainly do that. But I do have one question that I get a lot is, when you were going through the process, which I totally appreciate, before you get to the physical taking of the application, do you have a go-to set of collateral material or fact finders or proposals that you use to solidify what you're trying to do? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so kind of yes or no, yes and no to that question. I really do not have true fact finders that are written out. And I'm unique, Jeff, so and I understand that, but I pretty much know the questions I want to answer, and I've been asking them for 24 years. So I have them memorized, and I go through it and ask the questions. However, there is a software that I use, and it is called One Protection. To me, it actually gives the best story to tell the client. So once I've gone through the first three questions, or the first three steps, like I said, of identifying a problem, agreeing buy-in on a problem, and then also that they want to solve it, I use this software called One Protection that actually illustrates where the problem is, how we can actually put in different illustrations, that different solutions, that they can see how much of it will actually solve that particular solution. So it was a software created by a former DI wholesaler and also a top DI seller for one of the other companies in the industry. So, and that was always a problem. How do we get people to see it, to tell the story, and make it easier for advisors? I love it. And so that's really, it adds to my process. And ever since I incorporated that almost 2 years ago, usually I think I now have about 3 people that have told me in 2 years, have told me, no, I don't want to do it. So hope that helps.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the questions we have here is that usually when having the conversation about income protection and talking about this covering injury or illness, the conversation can turn to what can you do to help cover the immediate expenses until the disability income policy kicks in. So any thoughts on that as far as, explaining elimination period or how benefits work, or overcoming those, that objection of needing it today or now?
Yeah. So if you remember, I said that the first 2 things I talk about, cash reserves and disability or income protection. It's because of that. So I talk about cash reserves and really building up at least 90 days of expenses. Having that in play, having that put together for them. Now, a lot of times when you meet with a client, they don't have 3 months or 90 days worth of expenses. Maybe they've got 2 months. Maybe they got 6 weeks. So then I talk to them about, well, we really need to focus on this, but at the same time, let's apply for the disability insurance, get it in place. And, when I'm going through the disability proposal, and again, trying to figure out the best solutions to solve something for them, because now they want it solved, I always call it the income protection menu, is kind of how I talk about it, because to me, income protection is all a la carte. It's all about what riders, what benefits, how much benefit, what waiting period. So it's all interchangeable. I've also described it the income protection Mr. Potato Head or Mrs. Potato Head, because depends on what piece you want to put on there is how it's going to look. And what I have found is alliterations like that really help the clients, because now they see that it is customizable. Now they see that they can fit it into their budget, do those different things. So that's kind of how I do it, and it does help a lot.
I like that. Thank you. And then there's a lot of comments out here just saying how much everyone appreciates the conversation today, the information that you shared, and just how you break it down and make it real for them. So I want to just make sure that you hear that. We really do appreciate it, and it's obviously been helpful for the attendees. A few questions related around COVID vaccines and just how has there been any negative reactions to COVID vaccines that have been affecting underwriting, and has there been a negative effect on the claims from vaccines or overall COVID experience? So do you have any feedback on that from your side, from what you're seeing in industry as a whole?
Yeah. So I think the COVID and the vaccines and all those different things, I think have really spurred people to actually want to have disability insurance and have insurance protection. It's really opened up the conversation to make it even easier, in my opinion. So I think that's one benefit from it. But the COVID vaccines really, and I don't care what carrier you talk to, every carrier pretty much has the same stance. They're not going to really ask about whether or not they're vaccinated or not, unless there are other comorbidities. And you see it more on the life side than you do on the disability side. But if they're overweight with diabetes and some things like that, on the disability side, that's a little bit more contractually controlled with sub-ratings, substandard, exclusions, some different things like that, or just declining it. But on the life side, obviously, it's not as easily controlled. So a lot of times they'll actually ask for a vaccination card. I live in Texas. Trust me, that is a hard conversation to ask some people. But again, you talk about it, kind of see where they're at. As far as effects from a vaccine, no, I have not personally seen that. And I was just at an underwriting conference. One thing I haven't shared, I actually am a certified tactical underwriter for both life and DI. I've been an underwriter in my career, so I still keep pretty involved in that. So like I said, I'm unique. But I was just at a conference last week, and no one was talking about effects from a vaccine, but they are, especially in disability, still talking about effects from long COVID. So I guess if you really read into the tea leaves, they'd rather see someone vaccinated than not, because they're more of a concern about long COVID than there is about vaccination reactions.
That's helpful. Thank you. Another question here, we'll have a few more minutes, is mentioning that everyone should have DI, and if they say I have it at work, how do you overcome that conversation or transition into the need or opportunity still?
Andrea, great job. You have it at work. Congratulations. How does it work?
Good question.
And more than likely, they're not going to be able to tell you. I was like, do you know if it's coordinated with Social Security? No, I don't know. Is there a cap on your income? What do you mean? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? Is it 60%? How long is it going to pay for? Is it a 2-year? Is it a 1 year? Is it a 5-year? 65-year to age 65? How are those different things? Well, I don't know. Okay, great. Why don't we call your HR person right now, and let's actually get that information. We'll take a look at it. We'll actually have a conversation. But you've already identified that this is actually a big issue with you, is having that disability. If I can show you that even with work coverage, you're probably not fully covered, would that be a benefit to you? Yes. And that's, to Jeff's question a couple questions ago, that's really where that One Protection software really comes in play, is when you put in that group coverage and it's still showing that there is still a huge income loss if they're disabled for 2 years or 3 years. Then they start to go, oh yeah, okay, I probably do have a problem. So you have to know group coverage better than anybody, and then you have to know how their specific one is, but you just say, hey, that's great, that's fantastic, and then really just start, how's it work? What does it cover? How much benefit do you really get? You start putting in doubts, now they're more, I call them doubts, but you start actually poking holes, now they're actually willing to listen to you.
Yeah, just getting them thinking about what that coverage really is,
Yep.
And a lot of times are they referring to work comp, and they don't even have an income protection policy.
Correct.
So I think the biggest thing just for those of you advisors on the call is just making sure that when they say I have it at work, we don't stop right there,
Yep.
that conversation going. So, and then one more question here is, what is the coverage period that you normally sell, or your opinion of shorter versus longer term policies based on age? And I know we talked a little bit about this, just it's all a la carte based on the client, but any other additional information you wanted to share on that?
Yeah, I actually am very, probably my most popular is the 90-day waiting period, because most people don't have adequate cash reserves. But when I'm working with business owners, it's usually the more popular is 180 or even 365. more specific to the Illinois Mutual market, and I know, Andrew, I know you're trying to move more up market, but as you and I have talked about, blue collar middle market is really where your niche is right now. A lot of them have union contracts. A lot of those workers I work with have union plans. Those union plans only have a 1-year benefit or 2-year benefit. So I do, when I'm working with those types of workers, I will actually just do the waiting period to fit what that group plan is, because it's usually more just an extended short-term plan.
That's a great point, because again, just like the last question, so many times we hear, oh, we've got it at work, they have the 1-year plan, good, you're covered. But there's still opportunities to build around that to get them longer coverage. And longer coverage doesn't have to mean still an age 67 benefit period.
No.
It could be a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, but you just extend out that coverage that they have, because Social Security disability can be 2 to 3 years or longer to qualify for those benefits. So you want to make sure that they have the individual and or group coverage to make sure they're protected.
Correct.
All right, I think the last question we had here is, in working with other advisors, do you usually split commissions with other licensed agents? And I can't remember if you talked on this today, but I know we've talked about it in the past, so I'll let you, mention that.
Yes. I can work a couple different ways, really. If the agent doesn't want anything to do with it and they just forward it on to me, then I take it all. But usually I like to partner with the agent or the advisor because I want to teach them. I want to help them. So I generally will take 20% of the commission and then give them the rest. I find that is more than fair, but I do everything for that 20% so that I can teach them, walk them through it, and I have them on the meetings with me. So
that's great. And the software, someone asked what the name of the software is for DI. Was that One Protection?
Yep, One Protection. It's oneprotection.tech, if I remember correctly, is the website.
Okay. All right. I think that's everything. From the regionals or internal sales, did you guys have any other additional questions that you wanted to ask today? Okay. Ronnie.
Real quick, Andrew, before you close, I just really want to highlight, because we do have regionals and internals on here, use your regionals and internals. I know I seem smart, trust me. Maybe I am, but I'm smart because I actually call my regional, I call the internals. Erica and I literally probably talk once or twice a week on a case. And Jim and I, he's my regional, we talk. And I have relationships with every carrier I work with in the same manner, simply because you don't know everything, you miss something. So just really, really use them. Don't try to be an expert in everything.
That's great advice. And honestly, thank you so much just for your time today. Thank you for being a leader in the industry. Number one, just to keep the importance of income protection going, but thank you for your support and commitment to Illinois Mutual as well. We couldn't do it without you, and truly value all the information you shared today. And I hope all of you on the call found it to be helpful too. So thanks for your time. We made it more than 30 minutes, and someone did comment on that thank you for going longer than 30. You doubled your time. But just appreciate everything today and look forward to making it an awesome DM.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ronnie. Take care.